to make informed, science-based decisions to protect watershed health and ensure a sustainable future for our watersheds. Next slide. So just reflecting a bit about our geographic area and landscape. As noted, our watershed covers all of the regional municipality of Niagara, parts of Hamilton and Haldimand County. As noted earlier through land acknowledgement, this is home to Indigenous people, serving a place for sharing, trading, hunting and gathering, stewardship and fostering community bonds. And today the watershed supports a population of approximately 520,000 people, highlighting ongoing significance of this region. The watershed's is a unique natural treasure, which we do identify within our strategic plan, characterized by diverse cultural, geological, hydrological, and biological features that are really unparalleled in North America. Next slide. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So for our watershed-based resource management strategy, as I noted, it aims to guide us in managing and making decisions around our watershed resources. This presentation will touch on the strategic framework and regulatory requirements and the engagement process that we're following. Key objectives of this strategy includes enhancing watershed health and promoting climate resiliency and integrating input from interested parties. And we're hoping this engagement process can help be a call to action for interested parties to participate in shaping the sustainable future for our watershed. It also supports our commitment in protecting our unique watershed and promoting community engagement. So through Ontario Regulation 68621, which is our mandatory programs and services regulation made under the Conservation Authorities Act, it outlines specific programs and services that all conservation authorities must provide within their jurisdiction. We consider these, they're called under the Conservation Authorities Act, Category 1, mandatory programs and services. These are essential services such as natural hazard management, that all conservation authorities must deliver within their jurisdiction. These programs are eligible for cost apportionment and levying with our participating municipalities without requiring agreements in place. And they're typically funded through a combination of municipal levies, user fees, and grants. As part of the transition plans under the Conservation Authorities Act, we were required to develop an inventory of programs and services that outlined these mandatory programs and services that we are required to provide, as well as other programs and services that we have traditionally provided and are also offering for enhanced services for municipalities. So these Category 2 services are what are called municipal programs and services. They're services that are provided at the request of a municipality, such as tree planting initiatives or technical research to inform municipal decision-making. For these types of services, an MOU or service level agreement must be entered into with these requesting municipalities. And these programs are typically done through fee-for-service agreements with municipal partners. The Category 3, these are other programs and services. And, you know, from my perspective, they're not less important as, say, a Category 1 or 2. This category identifies that these are programs and services that are approved by our board and identified as important programs to have for the management of our watersheds. We can cost apportion the cost of these programs and services with our participating municipalities, but there must be cost apportioning agreements in place. And again, as part of our work for transition under the Conservation Authorities Act, we have entered into these agreements with Niagara Region, City of Hamilton, and Haldimand County. Under this regulation, there are requirements to complete a watershed-based resource management strategy. and it must be completed by December 31st of 2024. And it must include a comprehensive consultation process with interested parties and the public. And we're committed to ensuring that the strategy is prepared transparently and made publicly available to guide the sustainable management of our watershed resources. So this strategy must include guiding principles and objectives that inform the design and delivery of mandatory programs and services, a summary of existing technical studies, monitoring programs, and other information on the natural resources that the authority relies on within our jurisdiction or specific watersheds that directly informs and supports the delivery of the mandatory programs and services. It requires a review of our programs and services for the purposes of determining if the programs and services comply with regulations, so such as our mandatory programs and our requirements for reviewing prescribed Act applications, such as Planning Act applications, identifying and analyzing issues and risks that limit the effectiveness of the delivery of these programs and services, and identifying actions to address the issues and mitigate the risks identified by the review of our services. And should there be new programs introduced to mitigate those issues, we also do need to include a cost estimate for implementing those. We're also required to include a process for the periodic review and updating of the strategy by the authority that includes procedures to ensure interested parties and the public are consulted during the review and the update. So in summary, we see the purpose of the watershed-based resource management strategy as a means to assist us with evolving and enhancing the delivery of our programs and services and to improve efficiencies and effectiveness in supporting those mandatory Category 1 programs. So the framework that we will follow will incorporate guiding principles and objectives from our current 10-year strategic plan, so 2021 to 2031, to shape the design and delivery of our programs and services, which it has been over the last few years for the enhancement of them and filling in the gaps that we have identified. It will also include a comprehensive summary of the data and technical information that we rely on to support our program delivery. So for example, existing watershed plans, water quality data, other sources of information like our ecological land classification, these will all be identified. As part of this is identifying potential issues and risks that could hinder the effective delivery of these programs and services, along with the targeted actions to mitigate these challenges. So in the online survey that's provided and the discussion paper, we do ask the public and the community to identify what types of programs and services you've been engaged in with the NPCA. What do you feel are potential risks or issues in us delivering these programs and services effectively and efficiently? And we will take that input and we'll start to think about, okay, these risks have been identified. What are ways that we can try to address them or mitigate them in moving forward with our strategy? And moving forward after implementation, as I noted, there will be a review, periodic review, and we will identify that process as part of this strategy. So as I noted, we're really looking at our strategic plan as our guidance in developing this strategy. This strategic plan was developed and really led by our staff and in consultation with the community. It's still very much relevant and is guiding our day-to-day work, and it's still appropriate to look towards those goals and objectives and moving forward with this watershed-based resource management strategy. So the strategic plan, it emphasizes a conservation-first philosophy, collaborative ethics, and innovation rooted in science, setting the foundation for our response to climate change, growth, and the need for sustainable green infrastructure. Our vision is nature for all. We envision a healthy and vibrant environment with shared green space and clean water that sustains life for future generations, with a mission to create common ground for conservation-inspired action and accountability to nature. Our guiding principles within the strategic plan, watersheds watersheds transcend municipal boundaries. Natural green infrastructure is critical to life. Diverse experiences and ideas lead to stronger outcomes, and innovation requires learning from each other and the past. As I noted, we have completed an inventory of programs and services that was completed in 2022, and we identified 4 key service areas. Natural hazard management, which aims to protect people and properties from floods, erosion, and other hazards, reduce public risk, enhance environmental health, and promote awareness of natural hazards. Watershed resource management and climate change. This is really our science and research branch of our work to undertake assessments of our watershed conditions, cumulative impacts, and climate risks, including guiding strategies such as this one to protect and enhance and restore healthy climate resilient watersheds. Our Conservation Authority lands and conservation areas, which you'll hear a bit more in the next presentation. We manage approximately 3,000 hectares of land, including 41 conservation areas, which is essential to watershed management, environmental protection, and recreation within our peninsula. And enabling services, and these are all the services that support the delivery of our programs and services, from finance, accounting, risk management, procurement, all our aiding programs and services, as well as governance and communications and engagement. And of course, we can't do this alone. We identify that partnerships are important for implementing successful programs and services, and we aim to create resilient systems through collaboration, inclusion, and innovative approaches to program delivery. As we heard through the development of our strategic plan, and we continue to hear throughout the many work that we do, climate change is important for us to consider in the delivery of our work. And watershed management plays a crucial role in addressing the impacts of climate change, and we're committed to integrating climate action into our approach for watershed-based resource management. Of course, a key strategy in all of this is flood mitigation, one of our mandatory programs and services. Enhancements and innovations such as using natural infrastructure such as wetlands to absorb stormwater and reduce the risk of flooding. Carbon sequestration is a critical focus in efforts that we are embarking on that are centered on protecting and restoring forests and capturing and storing carbon, and thereby mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. We're also focused on enhancing ecosystem resiliency as a priority by improving habitat connectivity and biodiversity, and helping our natural systems adapt to the variability brought upon by changing climate conditions. So as I noted, we do have a Get Involved portal. We do have a survey that is available. And we want to hear from you on your thoughts for enhancing our programs and services, your thoughts on what you think may be those risks and issues that may challenge us in delivering those programs and services, and even thoughts on how could we mitigate those issues and risks, or what types of programming should we also include and consider in the future. So just some next steps. As I noted, we do need to have a final strategy in place by end of the year. So following this stage of public engagement and input, we will be developing the draft strategy, taking that forward to our board in October so that we can post it for additional comment and work towards bringing that into our board for approval in December, allowing us to refine it based on input. So with that, I thank you. If you have direct comments as well, as in addition to the survey, you can email Tara directly. That is her email address there. And it's also on the Get Involved web portal. But of course, staff are here this evening if you have any questions for us. So I will hand it off to Natalie.
use this one for now. All right, thank you, Leilani. We'll move into the question period. We have a lot of time for questions. We're going to do a mix of taking in-person questions as well as online questions. So I will walk around with a microphone. Just raise your hand. I can walk over and place a microphone in front of you so you can ask a question. And if there's any online questions, then we'll have Erica read the question out loud and then pass it over to staff to answer. Hello. Okay, that's working. Okay, you have a question?
One role that I know the MPCA had in the past, and I hope you still do, the right near here, the Glen Ridge Quarry Rehabilitation. I believe the region and the MPCA had an agreement with the MPCA would, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Where the MPCA would essentially manage the site for the region. That was told that the region took the view they didn't want to create their own park system, would have the MPCA, manage it for them. And I wonder if this is still the case. I think that's good, but maybe this site could, formally become a conservation area instead of being in sort of an administrative limbo. And I think there's a lot of examples, like the region owns a lot of land that has natural habitat, the area around water treatment plants, sewage plants, a lot of other former dumps, they could be, naturalized by the authority through an agreement. And there's all these other, like, public bodies like the Seaway and the Ontario Hydro that, agreements could be made with.
So do we want to pass it over? It does sound like a bit of a conservation area strategy question, but do we want to handle that with Jeff? Do you have your microphone on there? Technology is wonderful. It's for the people online, though. We have to go through the mic so everybody online can hear us as well. Can you hear through that microphone?
Excuse me, sorry, my apologies. Is it okay if we just take a 5-minute break? We invite everybody here joining us to just grab some cookies and coffee. We're just having some technical difficulties and we'll be back on in 5.
Sure. Hello? Hello, hi. Welcome back. I apologize for the inconvenience. We had some technical difficulties. We had some issues with the Zoom. So if you were trying to join us on Zoom, it looks like you may have missed the first part of the presentation. It is completely recorded and live streamed on our YouTube channel, so you can go back to the YouTube channel, take a look at the presentation. A link was sent out to registrants as well, so you can have a look at the link, reread the, watch the video, and then if you would like to participate in the rest of the meeting and ask questions, we encourage you to continue to join us in Zoom. A link would have been sent out to you, and you can pose your questions there. So before we took a break, there was a question about lands in the Niagara region that could potentially be passed over to MPCA or work with MPCA to conserve those. We were about to pass it over to Jeff Vercade to answer that question, so I'll let him answer the question, and then we'll move forward.
Thanks, Natalie. I know there was some comment about a specific property in question, and I'll actually refer Eric, our manager of land planning, to that in a moment. But in a broader sense of dealing with public properties and the natural assets on them and features, we've been working very closely with a lot of our public partners, the member municipalities, in inventorying opportunities to do naturalization through tree planting and other restoration services opportunities. We've even got some that are interested in constructing wetlands and whatnot on. So we certainly value the broader public properties for their natural heritage values, the natural features that currently exist on them, and we're working with partners to enhance and appreciate those. And in the same vein, we also recognize that those existing features on there have research and other value. We are part of our tree planting initiative, have a complementary endeavor along with that, which is to establish a native seed collection community of practice. And a lot of our municipal partners are going to be available to become members of that, and we're valuing that for the access to some of these neat natural features where we would be able to get and collect seed with a higher degree of accuracy than, say, relying on private landowners and stuff like that. So we'll start there first with them in that sense. But yeah, we're doing lots of work with public properties in terms of enhancement, tree planting, and consideration of land planning needs. So I'll let Eric jump in now.
Yeah, just to continue on from what Jeff was speaking about, certainly there's a variety of programs and services that we work with our partner municipalities on, and land management is one of those, so we're going to continue to look at that. There's lots of different types of public land within the watershed, and we're always working with our watershed partners, whether it's municipalities or interest groups within the region, within the watershed, to best manage those, figure out what the best programs and services are for those, and figure out who may be best to manage and operate those. Every property is going to fill its own niche, so it doesn't guarantee that it's appropriate for MPCA ownership or management, but we also have to consider other concerns or considerations with the properties. So it's not a slam dunk that MPCA is going to manage all of them, but it's definitely opportunities that we continue to work with our partners on.
Great, thank you. Erica, are there any questions online?
Yes, there is one. The participant's question is, how does MPCA's existing strategic plan relate to this new strategy?
Thank you, and very good question. And as I tried to highlight in the presentation, we're really taking the direction from the strategic plan. A lot of work was put into it to identify our vision, goals, and objectives as a conservation authority, and also identifying gaps that need to be filled as part of achieving our goals and objectives and targets. So drawing upon the strategic plan, we're now applying that to our programs and services, and how that continues to guide the detailed work that we do, our everyday work, and looking for opportunities to enhance that, all within the umbrella of Nature for All and our vision.
Thank you. I saw a hand up over here.
Yeah, is that working? Having seen what the emerald ash borer did to all your ash tree populations, and we're going to be invaded shortly with the spotted lanternfly, which is one of its favorite foods is walnut trees, is black walnut trees. Do you have any plans to manage this disease as opposed to what we did with the ash, which was nothing? Because we don't need to lose. You keep wanting to plant trees. It'd be nice to save a few.
Thank you. So questions about invasive species management? Do you want to take that, Eric?
I can certainly start, and then if anybody else wants to jump in, they can. We are, MPCA is going to be embarking on developing an invasive species strategy for, I will call it the watershed right now. Much like the first question, we're going to be working with all of our municipal partners on that, as well as interest groups within the watershed. As your question suggests, it's not going to be a simple answer or an easy answer for a lot of these species, and not a cheap answer either. So we do have to work with all those partners and figure out the appropriate roles and responsibilities. We have our 41 properties, nearly 3,000 hectares of land that we're going to be managing, and certainly there already is invasive species present. So we do have to work on managing those. The exact treatment options and our ability and function in treating that will come through the strategy. But even in advance of the strategy, we do constantly work with all the partners to try and address specific management or mitigation options. It does take some time, so it may not be immediate. And as we talked about, it's going to be not necessarily the cheapest answer. So we will continue to work on that. And we're keeping abreast of all of the hot button species and in direct contact with those agencies and partners that have experience and solutions available to us. But it will take some time.
Thank you. All right, so flipping back to online, we'll check to see if there's any questions there as well.
No questions right now.
Okay, anybody else in person? Yeah.
So I'm curious, and forgive me because I certainly haven't read all the background material, but does the strategy filter down into hard targets for hectares of invasives removed and signal species improved and so forth in the watershed? I mean, is that what you're working towards? As you probably know, Jeff, we're looking at doing a census of the brook trout and counting them and seeing where we are as a bench line, and then does this strategy that NPCA has, does it get down to hard targets that you can measure yourself against over a 3 or 5 year period?
Just going to clarify, do you mean, which strategy are you talking about? The watershed-based natural resource management strategy, or are you more specifically the invasive species?
In the watershed, and let's face it, most of the land is watershed, so yeah.
Yes. Okay, so there's a question about invasive species and hard targets that will be established through any of those strategies.
Thanks for the question. I think what we're embarking on is the first step, and it's giving the guidance and the direction for more work to be done. But we are prioritizing invasive species management, as Eric said, and I think that strategy needs to be played out to see what our role will be and what targets we'll set for ourselves. So we do want it to be meaningful and have an impact. As Eric said, it'll come down to who needs to be involved in the roles and responsibilities to work collaboratively to make sure the action happens and it's targeted correctly. Anything else? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions before? I'll just check online. Nothing? Okay. So moving over here. Just the gentleman behind you here. Just make sure you hold I was talking to John. Just hold it in front so we can hear.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, hi. So my question is about the report card that I read for the first time maybe 2 weeks ago. So just seeing that we have a lot of room for improvement everywhere, but especially surface water. And I've lived in the region 16, 17 years, and came here because of the wonderful natural beauty and all that. And then it's just it saddens us to find out that it's it's either stable at a low level, just in terms of what factors are reported on. So my question is really, when the report card, so to speak, is a fairly low grade like that, and as now we look ahead to what needs to change in order to have an improved grade, as we look back on the last number of years, what are the main factors that didn't allow us to raise that grade? I mean, development is just so rampant, has been in the last 6 to 8 years or whatever. Is that the main fault? Like, had it not been for so much development, we may have more easily met targets? Or was the strategy not well advised that we had been going on until now? Or can somebody, I hope the question is, it's just a general question about a report card, but I don't know if it.
So the way that I'm understanding that question is you're asking about the surface water quality in the watershed and what kind of impacts or effects that we're having, and how can we improve those through our watershed-based management strategy actions? How can we improve those grades with our strategies that will be in place? Is that what you were asking?
Also looking back, what didn't work? Or what were the factors that didn't allow us to improve?
So what didn't work and what we can do to improve through that? Okay, with our plan. Do you want to try to tackle that one, or?
Again, another very good question. I think part of it is technical and maybe part of it is philosophical, and what have we done wrong, or what did we fail to do, and where should we go? My understanding, more on a technical basis, you're right. There has been increased growth pressures and development, not just in housing, but other industries as well, that have contributed to, vegetation loss, but we also see those as opportunities to work with these parties on how can we do better and how can we bring that green development standards or sustainable development or low impact development as part of everyday growth within the watershed. I think there's inherently some natural forces at work too within our watershed that we're just starting to scratch the surface to understand. So those non-point source, pollution runoff, and where is that coming from, and how is that affecting our waterways and our shorelines? And Tara's leading a project with the University of Guelph just to start to scratch the surface to model that and understand what's happening within the upper Welland tributary areas on that. So I think time has sort of told a story to us, and now we're trying to dig in and figure out what has happened in the past and what do we need to continue to do and advocate in terms of innovation and bringing more like nature-based solutions to the table rather than maybe some of the usual traditional types of solutions that maybe haven't had the effects, the intended effects that we were looking for. So a lot of the work we have been focusing on, and again, this does stem from our strategic plan, is filling in those gaps, filling in the research, the data, the monitoring, and the information gaps so that we can have a better sense of what the impacts have been. So the report card is one of those examples in our water quality monitoring program and enhancing that, and now looking more broadly at terrestrial monitoring and impacts. So really getting down to characterizing our watershed and where we stand today, and then looking forward on what we need to do. But I'll turn to Jeff. Jeff's been here for 20 odd years, and he may have perspective too.
Yeah, that's actually a phenomenal question, and Leilani's done a great job characterizing what's going on there. But you mentioned the watershed report card, right? You notice those water quality grades, they're in context of land cover grades, specifically wetland and forested cover, right? So what a former colleague of mine used to always say, what we do on the land is reflected in the water. So it's a land cover and a land use issue to a certain extent. So what do we do better is we become more intentional with our mitigation tools, which is a lot of restoration and other stewardship type things. And you try to go where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck. So like Leilani mentioned, you use modeling tools to see where you're getting high yields and where you can place the buffers or the wetlands to filter where you're going to get big yields like that. In order to inform that kind of programming, you need to have a holistic approach. So you've heard throughout the presentation here, watershed management. That's something we need to get back to in a very strong way here with watershed planning that create action plans on a watershed level. So you can look at an individual watershed from that perspective, but also it creates recommendations for those other things, land cover and land uses. So I think going back to the basics and having a really robust integrated watershed planning process going would be the biggest fix at this point.
Great, thank you. I think we have time. We have one question online, and I know there's one more in person. So we have time for that, right? Before we switch gears? Yeah? Okay, Erica, go ahead.
The one question from the online participant is MPCA pushing municipalities and the region to embrace low-impact development strategies and green infrastructure to reduce habitat loss due to warming and sedimentation?
Leilani, do you want to?
Thank you for the question online. The last 2 years, we have been working closely with our municipal partners, not just on the work that we do, but the work that they're doing. And they've undertaken their own work from a planning perspective in looking at official plan reviews and watershed studies, as well as developing broader watershed and biodiversity action plans and strategies. So collectively, we can take a look at what is some innovative science and approaches we can bring to the watershed. And across the board, low impact development and green infrastructure has been identified as something that we need to focus broader on. And the role we can play as a conservation authority is support that science in the implementation and work with our municipal partners to help support them. And then also for our own lands, we have to talk the talk and walk the walk. And on our own lands, we are actively implementing low impact development technologies. So for example, our Rockway Conservation Area, we have permeable pavers in place, as well as other items such as accessible trails and electric car chargers as well, so that we can ensure that we're also, committed to mitigating climate change in our efforts. And if you're also interested in going to Cave Springs, in the improvements to the parking lot, we also did include a French drain infiltration system and a rain garden there with native species. And it did take a while to get the right species, and that's a lesson learned, is it does take some time to know what needs to grow where and how it will function. And then St. John's, we've just implemented improvement to the road and the bridge. And if you look down the side, you'll see some innovative technology in terms of bank stabilization using some good new technology. So we're also investing in our own properties and seeing what works and monitoring them as well.
Thank you. Okay. How much time do we have? One more question here. We okay for time? Okay. One more. John, you good? Okay.
I just want to follow up about invasive species. I think there should be more public consultation and planning on this issue because, for example, the emerald ash borer, there's a predatory wasp that has been introduced in parts of Canada. I have no idea if this is being done in Niagara or not, and what the situation is with controlling the ash borer here. The fungus that attacks bats, white nose. There's no active strategies to combat that, and I don't know if anything's being done here or not. And these things should be part of the public discussion.
So the question is about public engagement and consultation with regards to when we do look to undertake invasive species strategies down the road. Eric, yeah?
So another very good question. You will be provided with the opportunity to engage on very specific action items for a particular property or a particular species. You'll also have the opportunity to participate in developing the invasive species strategy, so we'll have engagements on those as well. The invasive species strategy that we spoke about for another question, we're going to be engaging a consultant to help with us, and there'll be a lot of activity on that in 2025. In the meantime, there are specific species that we do, or specific issues that we do try to address on our own properties. Where needed, there's certainly engagement with the local community and neighbors, especially depending on the treatment option. And when we talk about working with the community or working with partners, it's something we always do currently engage in. But we also, for those that don't know, when you talk about potential biological treatments, we work with research partners, academia, different federal ministries that have approved certain treatment options, whether it's broadly or for specific trials. So there has been some for, say, Phragmites that we've engaged in. And we do welcome any opportunity to try and find alternative solutions to that. And we continue to work with all of our partners on that.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so that concludes this portion for the watershed-based management strategy conversation. The questions, if you have any additional questions, staff will be in the room just over here while we switch gears and move to the next presentations. You're welcome to stay. And those online, I think is it the same link for those people online just to stay in the current meeting?
So you would have had to register to the other one, but if any of the folks on the Zoom right now can message the host, I can give them that same link.
All right, super. I'll just turn it over to our CAO just for some closing remarks, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you. And thank you again for everyone taking your time. I know time is precious, and we do appreciate your input, and we value your participation. So thank you for those in person and those online for being part of this process with us and the strategy. As noted, we welcome you to stay to listen to the next portion. If you do have to go, we do encourage you to connect with us again if you'd like to through the Get Involved portal or emailing us directly. So thank you very much. And just a reminder, we will post the draft strategy for a commenting period in October as well. So thank you very much. And thank you to staff for all the work you've put into this. Thank you.